You were born in a small village where the wind always carried the smell of dust and hunger. The roof above your head leaked every rainy season. The rice jar was often empty before the end of the month. In your childhood memories, there were no toys, only the sound of your mother sighing at night. Hunger was a shadow that never left your family. Sometimes, hunger felt more frightening than death. When winter came, the cold entered through cracks in the wooden walls. You slept close to your mother for warmth, listening to her heartbeat, slow and tired. Your father rarely spoke. His face carried the heavy silence of a man defeated by poverty. Then one day, strangers came to your house. They wore silk robes. Their shoes were clean. Their hands were soft. Hands that had never touched soil. They looked at you carefully, not like someone looking at a child, but like someone examining an object. You were 13 years old. Your hair was long and dark. Your skin was pale like porcelain. Your beauty became your destiny. Your father did not see a daughter. He saw survival. A small bag of silver coins was placed on the table. The sound of metal touching metal echoed in the room. It sounded pleasant, almost hopeful. But your chest tightened, because deep inside you knew something was ending. Your father did not meet your eyes when he accepted the silver. Perhaps shame felt heavier than hunger. Perhaps he convinced himself this was love. They told you that you would live in the emperor's palace. They told you that your life would change. They told you that you would never be hungry again. You stepped onto the wooden carriage. Behind you, your mother cried silently. Your childhood disappeared with the sound of rolling wheels. Ahead of you stood towering red walls. Walls so high, they blocked the sky. You thought you were entering heaven, but in truth, you were walking into a golden cage. Inside the palace lived thousands of women. Some came willingly, most did not. Here, beauty was currency, youth was power, and obedience was survival. Everything followed strict rules, rules older than anyone inside those walls. At the top sat the first wife, the empress. Her robe shimmered with gold threads shaped like dragons. Dragons symbolized power. Power meant survival. When she looked at you, her eyes did not see a person. She saw competition. You were only a low-ranking concubine, lower than her, lower than many others, almost like a servant, but dressed in silk. Silk can hide poverty, but silk cannot hide fear. Every morning, you knelt before senior wives. The stone floor was cold beneath your knees. You bowed until your forehead touched the ground. Sometimes, you stayed like that for hours. One wrong word could bring punishment. One mistake could destroy your future. In this palace, kindness was rare because kindness was dangerous. Kindness made you weak, and weakness could cost everything. Here, power depended on one thing: who captured the emperor's attention, and who could keep it. One evening, a palace servant entered your room in a hurry. Her voice was quiet, but urgent. "The emperor has called your name tonight." Other girls might have smiled. Other girls might have felt honored. But your hands trembled. Because inside this palace, being chosen was not always a blessing. It was a test, a ritual, a moment where your fate could change or end. Before meeting the emperor, strict procedures were followed. Your clothes were removed. Every part of your body was inspected. They were not checking beauty. They were checking danger. A concubine was never fully trusted. Even beauty could hide a blade. After the inspection, they wrapped you in a deep red silk blanket, tightly, like an insect trapped inside a cocoon. 2 palace servants lifted you. You could not walk. You could not move freely. You could only wait. Long corridors stretched endlessly. Lanterns flickered like distant stars. Your heartbeat echoed louder with every step. You felt like a gift, or perhaps an offering. When you reached the Emperor's chamber, rules continued. You could not look directly at him. You could not speak unless spoken to. You crawled forward slowly from the foot of the bed. Every movement reminded you were not here as a person, you were here as a possession. That night ended without warmth, without love, without comfort. When it was over, they carried you back. Silence followed. You lay alone in your room. Tears soaked the silk pillow. You asked yourself a question that had no answer. Were you a wife or only an object? People outside the palace imagined luxury. They imagined endless feasts, golden decorations, soft music floating through halls. They were not wrong, but they didn't know the truth. Luxury cannot replace freedom. Silk robes covered your skin, but silk could not hug you. Pearls decorated your hair, but pearls could not listen to your thoughts. The palace was always full of people, yet loneliness filled every corner. Some women never saw the Emperor again after their first meeting. Days became months. Months became years. They sat near windows watching seasons change. Spring blossoms, summer rain, autumn leaves, winter snow. Time passed silently. Beauty faded quietly. Dreams disappeared slowly. Inside red walls. Youth bloomed brightly but died unseen. Loneliness here felt colder than winter wind. Do not believe the palace was peaceful. It was a battlefield. But the weapons were invisible. Smiles hid jealousy. Greetings hid suspicion. Friendship could hide betrayal. Look carefully at the tea served to you. The color may seem normal. The fragrance may seem gentle. But danger often has no smell. Poison was a silent enemy. Pregnancy could bring power, but it could also bring danger. If you carried the Emperor's child, you became a threat to others. Someone might push you on the stairs. Someone might add herbs to your food. Herbs that caused pain. Herbs that ended hope. Because one son could change everything. A son could raise your status. A son could secure your future. But losing that child could destroy everything. Women who lost favor were sent to the cold palace, a forgotten place filled with dust and silence. No music, no laughter, only memories. Some women spent decades there, talking to themselves, remembering a past that no longer mattered. Inside these walls, gentleness could be dangerous, innocence could be fatal. But even in darkness, humans search for light. Even in cages, the heart dreams of freedom. Some palace women refused to let suffering define them. They created something secret, a hidden world, a silent rebellion. They invented a secret script, a language that men could not understand. Through delicate embroidery, they wrote messages on silk fans, messages about pain, messages about longing, messages about dreams of running freely across open fields. Through these small acts, they preserved their identity. They reminded each other. They were still human. They were still alive. In a place built on competition, sisterhood became medicine, a quiet form of resistance. Years passed. Dynasties changed. Empires fell. History moved forward. And one day, the palace gates opened. You stepped outside slowly. The world looked unfamiliar. Your reflection had changed. Time had left its mark. But something else had changed too. You removed the lotus shoes. Shoes that had shaped your feet since childhood. Shoes that symbolized beauty, but caused pain. For the first time, your feet touched the earth freely. The ground felt warm. The air felt different. The sky looked wider. You were no longer a concubine, no longer a possession. no longer a silent name inside palace records. You were human. History might forget your face. History might not remember your voice. But your story remains. Because flowers that bloom in darkness prove the strength of life. The snow has stopped falling. And for the first time, spring belongs to you.